what if our consciousness, like right now, like this is the universe waking up? Like, what if instead of discovering the universe, this is the universe, like this is the evolution of the little literal universe herself. Like we are not separate from the universe. Like this is the universe waking up. This is the universe seeing herself for the first time. Like this is
the universe becoming conscious for the first time, and we're part of that.
Yeah, because it's like we aren't separate from the universe. Like this could be like an incredibly sacred moment, and maybe like social media and all these things, the stuff where we're all getting connected together. Like maybe these are the neurons connecting of the like collective super intelligence that is,
waking up.
So we are meeting today to talk about network states, the future of humanity, the big awakening, the future of decentralized communities, about Dan and his vision of a decentralized, more prosperous future for humanity, and just have a discussion, because I think we are standing in front of something enormous, a new governance model for the world, which needs to come. And we have a window of opportunity which was never been bigger than currently. Maybe it will even more grow. And I think then you are behind this idea for a longer time. We are thinking about this idea for a long time, and more people joining our movement, and a lot of people basically who will watch this video, maybe they never heard about network states. And of course, I can imagine how far away it is from their reality. So we also need to keep in mind that we pick those people up. So then, who are you? What do you do? How did you came to this idea, or how did you join Gaia network? And yeah, so tell us about Gaia. Who are you, and why do you do what you do?
Sure thing. I'm not going to share the whole story, but I think why I'm doing what I'm doing is because ultimately I believe that we are free beings on a planet where we are part of the same family. That's the really short summary. And that realization happened through work with visionary states, different states of consciousness, but also working with indigenous and also studying pretty much the history of humanity, how we used to be hunters, gatherers, live in tribes, and we were very connected to each other, and we were very much dependent on each other. And I personally believe, and many people believe that with me, that we are programmed by the myth of separation. And it's the big American dream that you can make anything happen and you take care of yourself and this energy of take. And well, we're clearly seeing that we are destroying our planet at the moment as a species, and we are on a self-terminating path. And if you want to go really deep into why and how that all works, I highly recommend people to look up Daniel Schmachtenberger. He talks about the meta crisis and also the risks of AI. And he talks about the so-called generator functions of our society. Why we are having a biodiversity collapse, why we are having mental health crises, food crises, why there is corruption in our governments, and why there is a centralization. There's a move towards more and more centralization, towards a totalitarian control. And he also explains how human psychology works. And in the end, the system that we are living in right now is functioning exactly how it is supposed to work. And the people in there are all acting exactly how they are supposed to act within the system, the way it is designed. I personally don't really believe there's some big evil master plan. I think people are just people, and people who have accumulated a lot of wealth usually also have accumulated a lot of power. And yeah, it's human psychology. When you are in these class-based pyramidic structures, once you're at the top, you elevate yourself above the others, and you think that you need to control everybody and not lose your access to resources and power. And there is this general belief by that group of people that the bottom people are just too stupid. So what do you do then? You treat them like sheep, you program the world, you take control of everything. First, you take control of the media, of the mind, which we've seen the last 40, 50 years. and you start to take control of the money, control the food systems, and then you introduce digital ID systems. And well, we all know the 2030 agenda if you're a little bit aware of these things. And if you are not, then it's worth some research to open your mind a little. So I started looking at these things about 15 years ago and realized we would arrive at this point where we are today. And have looked for what are alternatives. Initially, I thought, an eco-village is a really good idea. We go live off-grid, right? We have our own energy and water. But the more I read and the more I see, then you just create another little pocket of illusion within the matrix of control, which doesn't really liberate you. So again, it comes back to this sense of, I believe we are free beings, we have a free will. I believe this universe is a place we are all equally powerful, but many people just don't understand or realize that, or we have just been really programmed to be kept dumb, small, castrated, cut off from our connection to what I like to refer as the divine. You can call it the universal consciousness, you can call it mysticism, or there's many words, for accessing unity consciousness. And if you have capacity, social and spiritual technologies to access unity consciousness, you will be opened up your mind, your awareness, consciousness, your spirit will see that you're free and you're eternal. And I've had several of these actually tons of these experiences over the last 10 years that have really helped me to have a zoomed out perspective of the world and reality, and then look at it from a holistic perspective. And the only conclusion I can come up to is that our old world and system is collapsing. It's self-terminating, very obvious. And we can go very deep in that, but I don't think that's necessary now. And for me, the only thing that still makes sense is to build a new world, a new reality that makes the old world obsolete, which brings us to pretty much civilization design, civilization engineering, societal design, whatever you want to call it, which is actually weird enough, a really unknown field. But Jacques Fresco did a great job at this with the Venus Project of showing how you can connect cities together and all make them hyper-local, hyper-resilient, and independent on their own. And that means more than food, water, and energy, what you would find in an eco-village, but that means the total offering of services and products that we need to run our relatively advanced and complex society that we are in now. So not going back to the Stone Ages. I also don't think it's going back to, I don't know, just living on the land and building with Adobe and then the problems in the world are solved. So I believe we need to make a push through to a next level of our evolution. And that includes technology, but it also includes this remembering of who we truly are, where we belong, and what our real power is as individual creators. I believe we are all creators. Nobody is small. Nobody is not able to.
The internet kind of failed, huh? I think that the masterminds are blocking us.
NSA already blocked us.
Yeah, NSA blocked that now. You talk too much, man.
But we need to wait for them to come
Talking
back.
about change society.
I mean, we had some rumors. We had some rumors that some people in suits came during our meetup here in Malta and they took pictures.
Yeah.
Then we need you back. But let's have a conversation in between, Raoul.
Yes.
My answer would have been
You will join again.
100% I would put my name behind what he is saying. 100%. It's the same what
100%.
I want to get across. And it's
I think that it is important that we start building our own world, because the world is not ours like this. It is something that is it's an idea constricting us to live in an illusion that we consider real, we humanity. But some of us woke up and maybe they weren't expecting that.
But the beautiful thing is that, I mean, so many people are coming together, and we spoke now maybe for 1 hour in total with Dan. But it is like that we would have spoken for months and synchronized our ideas about the world, and we didn't. But something is happening that a lot of people join us and they all say the same, Okay, now we are back. The internet connection was a little bit interrupted. It's the year 2023, and we want to build countries in the internet. Smart. Anyway, I think you gave a perfect intro to your mindset, to your whys. Raoul, I give the microphone to you. So,
hi guys. I'm Raoul. I consider myself a philosopher, an existential person, questioning everything, and like you, Dan, for the past 15 years, thinking of how can we change the way we think, and why are we thinking that way. I was thinking for myself, how was I thinking in certain ways that made me not free, because that free being consciousness idea arrived to me only 3 years ago, and it changed the way that I operate in the world. So I'm very happy to join you guys in this endeavor, in this fight that we are actually fighting. It's a war on the mind happening in the world, and we are the soldiers. And so I have a question for you, Dan. How do you think that we can change the minds of the people you call sheep in order to achieve what we intend, which is a more equitable society?
Let's be clear. I don't think they're sheep. Huh? I think some people think they're
I know.
Okay. Let's make that clear.
But they are.
Yeah, well, okay, good. But how can we change people's minds with the same technology that others have been doing it for the last 30, 40 years? And that's through story, through values, and through culture.
So change the narrative, change the culture. And how long do you think that would take? Because right now we do have a lot of people already on our page, so it could be something that is starting, but at the same time we would need a big motivation. So do you think that if we build a city that tells the world that it is possible, that could help in the transition?
A massive accelerator. You see, you have these phases now. The early ones, the early adopters, then the mid people, then the ones that come after, and then finally the masses. Exactly. Or even the most stubborn ones, they come the latest. But the most stubborn ones can be more convinced once they actually walk around in an environment like that instead of talking about it. Some people are sparked enough by the story. Some people need to live it. So for sure, it's going to help when we build it, of course.
Yes. Is this something you are doing in Gaianet? Preparing
Not
to
with
build
Gaianet.
the city?
No, with Gaianet, we are creating the network to find the people and gather the expertise and also collect blueprints, ideas, all of the different forms of technology, social, spiritual, and technological technology. And we're looking for those folks. And I have a pet project to build a couple of cities. So that's not something that I do within Gaianet, but at the moment it's a pet project.
So how do you think we can achieve funding for this concept? You know, I know we're living in a world where we need money to do this. But we need, I think, a lot of money to build a city. A lot of money and a lot of resources. But at the same time, I do think we do have the knowledge to build it already. It is a possibility in the science realm to build the city. So how do you think it's achievable, funding-wise?
I have a very strong belief and also already some practical evidence around it in my own life that not only people like us three are talking about this, but people in all layers of our society are awakening to some form of truth that might shake them a little bit. And once they've gone past that, they will become of service to the greater good of all. And that means also wealthy people. That also means people in the banking industry. So I believe all the money exists. It's a matter of a redirection at short-term profit of shareholders, and having that as the main goal towards looking at how can we invest in new forms of value flows that will feed a new emerging reality, because the old one is dying anyways. There's no point trying to make more return on investment on your capital in the old system, because at some point it's just going to be gone. And if you have kids and you have a little bit of generational awareness and you have a little bit of care for humanity and the planet, and you have a bunch of money, then you will start to redirect your efforts towards funding these kinds of initiatives. And more people are already in that movement. Like, for example, I'm part of a cohort. Every Friday we meet. We have a 9-week dialogue. It's called the Ecological Regeneration Fund, Ecosystem for Regenerative Funding, by Michael Haupt. You can look him up on LinkedIn. He studied the collapse of civilizations and the patterns, and he brought us together because he has people in his network who are very wealthy, who don't have kids, and they would like to invest in a new emerging reality because they understand that putting their money in anything else is just pointless. So that's one source of money. But when we see the general narrative, although unfortunately the whole carbon narrative is maybe not the best narrative, but there is an understanding also with the people who are not talking specifically about this, that we are on a self-destructive path, that we need to start regenerating the planet, that the current systems don't work. And there's many foundations also liberating money for a regenerative future. So that's another source of money. And then there is many unforeseen sources of money, like we had the crypto booms over the last years, where all of a sudden people who had nothing, they got in early, and all of a sudden they're super wealthy and they start funding these kinds of initiatives. So there's that too. Well, and there's a fourth story, but I think that's a little bit too out of the box for this conversation. But there's another source of tremendous money, and it has to do with the restoration of the original wealth of the planet, the original kingdoms and family, and the lost treasures. But like I say, this is a bit out of the box, I think, for today. So the money is going to come from everywhere, pretty much. Yeah.
And how do you think a network state could be helpful in this process? Like a network state with its own currency, probably cryptocurrency.
I think anything that creates independence and resilience and has a way to nurture and feed itself and create a bubble of resilience with fortified connections, hard connections between the people, is beneficial for our common direction. Doesn't matter if it's a network state or a little living environment or a co-hub or anywhere where people get together and, help change the mind and the vision and the thinking and the beliefs and etc. and support each other to create alternative ways of living together, making decisions together, working with our resources and turning them into services and products. Any form is beneficial for our common direction of transforming, because they're going to feed this new loop. We have the old loop, the old collapsing system, and there's a new loop, a new emerging loop. And whatever more can flow from the old into this new loop, the sooner this new loop can take over and this old one will fade away, which is going to happen.
I love that. That's a good process that we are living in. Exciting. Do you think it is possible to see certain changes in our lifetime?
I have full of faith. I have no doubt, zero. But I don't think we're going to see it at the planetary scale in our lifetime. I think to see that humanity transform and care for this planet as our common pool of resources, probably going to take 50 to 100 years. So we need to be a little realistic here. But I think we will see the emergence of maybe, 50 or 100 cities of 20,000 to up to 100,000 people in our lifetime that are already part of this new paradigm.
Do you think that this old paradigm will fight with everything they have to block our hopes? Like even maybe not on purpose, because I think maybe even governments are acting within the paradigm they live in as sheep. Yeah. So do you think that maybe a nuclear war in the next 50 years is more probable than achieving some kind of resource-based economy globally?
I think the chance is high that it's both going to occur. I don't think we're going to have a nuclear war that's going to wipe out all life and all living environments.
No, but definitely not.
It's quite likely that, look, at the end of every civilization we've seen in the past, there is huge conflict. There's going to be a battle over resources. I explained earlier in my intro how the people in power are psychologically programmed. It's in our nature that once you achieve this place of the top of the top of the top, you don't want to lose your position. And they will do everything and anything they can, including their own death, to hold their position. So they're not going to say, I have all this wealth and blah, 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 and I see now it needs to change. So let's change the world. No, 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 no. So yes, there's going to be a lot of resistance. And don't you think we are right in the middle of that?
I think we are right in the middle of it. It's happening. I feel in the world I talk with a lot of people, and I talk about consciousness with a lot of people to understand the level of conditioning they have. And I sometimes get a little scared because most people that I speak to are not aware of their conditioning. So this is something that I arrived at certain conclusions that are the thing that makes me the free being that I am. But some people believe they're free within the conditioning, and they go into wars. Yeah, they pick up guns and arms and they follow the leader. They follow some idea that they are so sure of, yet they're living in an illusion. So how can we not have, without having the media, right, or some kind of tool to put another idea in their mind, how can we have a greater scale to our ideas? Well, or to the new paradigm that we're talking about. What do you think?
Can you define what means for you a greater scale?
It means that people talk about this in the news, that is on TV everywhere. And so that people will start, oh, well, okay, the news is saying this. And somehow this authority that the news have on people, because they believe it, then somehow the idea will spread globally. Within the next few years, I'm saying.
I want to add something here. The discussion is always whether it's smarter to attack with the current capitalist zeitgeist. So in practical terms, we with Cocoa Hub want to do something similar to what you want to do. But we want to start with co-living houses, like a sexy product which is easy to consume. It's just positive, you know, like the story has been told in the last 3 years in the media that going somewhere and work remotely is something which is acceptable in our societies. And what is happening then, of course, you put people in a co-living house for 1 month, they can book it with 1 click, and then something happens inside their brain. But, and that's my inner conflict, which I also have, is if we would act and work with the same instruments like the big guys, you know, like in a psychotic, like in a level which feels like you are manipulating someone, then you would have more success. So if we would position ourselves, for example, as a Web3 network state with a lot of beautiful avatars, probably we would already sit on millions like others are doing. But personally, I cannot do it. But others tell me you should play those games the big boys are playing. But for me, it feels like being manipulating others and lying. So that's my inner conflict. I just wanted to add, I don't know if it's a question, but
do you think that it is possible to change the current paradigm without manipulation? Because this is all manipulation and propaganda that we as humanity are seeing in the
I mean, if
culture.
we would be smart and we would play a capitalist game and then have a reach of 1 million people, or just have a media reach, and at one point you make the switch, you know, you are too big to be shut down, probably it would be a smarter way, faster with a bigger leverage than just speaking about negativity and we need to have a new paradigm, you know, we need, is like too much for most of the people. It's also like maybe Stockholm syndrome, that they would realize that they lived for 30 years this dream.
Exactly, this is what we're doing. We're living in whatever illusion they tell us in each country.
So the question is, how honest are you with what you are trying to build? And how much do you leverage, you know, certain capitalist instruments or spiritual instruments, you know, magic.
What do you think?
So I am not really interested in old world technologies to convince people or to move them to a certain path. I work with this plant. I host ceremonies with ayahuasca in my life here in Brazil. And I think the best shaman is the person who gives the cup and then gets out of the way. Kind of like give people the green pill. So again, it's about freedom, free will. Yeah. They can figure it out themselves. And I also, a part of me believes that we all have a path of destiny in a way in this lifetime. And some people are meant to awaken to other truths and others are not. And others are meant to, with all due respect, but die in ignorance, because that ignorance is bliss for them in this path.
True.
I also have no wish to convince all of humanity for this. I have no wish to fight the old. I have no interest in propaganda manipulation, because the very powerful technologies are out there that we could use. We could use the dark arts, so to speak, because that's what has been happening in a way. But it's not necessary, because also if you look at prophecies and biblical stories. Now, I'm not a religious advocate of any sorts. I'm a-religious, you know. I'm not following any doctrine or religion, but I live life connected with nature and with the interconnectedness of everything, because I've had the good fortune on my path to meet a mentor who has, so to speak, shown me the light. He gave me a cup of that stuff, you know, and all of a sudden, I never believed I had a soul. I thought I was finite and I just have my mind and hands and the body. But in this process with him the first time, I awakened to my eternity. And that is open access for everybody. And what I see specifically this is a feminine energy for me. They call this the mother. And I have been studying this for 10 years and looking how it's working, where it's served, and the movement of this plant on the world. She's come out of the jungle, out of the Amazon rainforest. Every single country in the world right now, ayahuasca ceremonies are being served, even in the worst countries where your head gets cut off if they find out. What does that mean? That means there is a root, the roots of the earth are coming up, man, and nature is doing its last outcry to us, because we are destroying our biodome, everything, like this whole biosphere that's full of life, and it's super intelligent. And it's not like we are dominating nature. Like, there's many stories that nature is actually dominating us, but we're not aware of that, and maybe us three are not even aware of that, and we'll wake up to that realization one day. But what I mean to say is there is a rise of the feminine going on. And we all have this inside of us. Men, women have a masculine part and a feminine part within us. And there's been a lot of focus on masculinity and energy. And there is this rise in all of us. And this is the care and the nurture and the interconnectedness and the family feeling and all of that, which is been decimated the last 500 years, the feminine force. It's been very male-oriented, mind-oriented. And when you look at the larger cycles and the Maya cycles, and you look at the 25,000-year cycles on the civilization, we are turning into the age of Aquarius, which is the age of togetherness, care, and the rise of the feminine energy. And our planet is feminine. You look in the shamanic traditions, the sun is often seen as male and masculine, bringing light and order. And the feminine is the chaos and the unpredictable, but also the nurture and the care. And we are in that, and some people are more drawn to that, and they will awaken to this just by itself. Just like in every country, this is being served now, because this energy, this spirit came out of the jungle to help humanity awaken. It's kind of like grab the popcorn and enjoy the ride. I don't think we need to use like the old technologies of manipulation, control, and things and dark arts to try to convince more. I think what is meant to be is meant to be. And I find peace in that, you know, and I don't have to shake too many people, but be yourself, be authentic, walk your path, do your service, build the network state, have these calls, build the cities. And the ones who are ready to be awakened will arrive. I have so strong that belief. It's so clear for me.
Yeah, I feel that as well.
Yeah.
Even though I see the propaganda in the news and what happens, and I feel like there must be something that needs to be done in that aspect. But in the end, all we do is just be us and genuine and what we can, and hopefully someone in another position will do that.
But
I agree
just
with
to
you.
add my 2 cents to what Dan just said, it's crazy because I share the same story like you do. I also had a mentor, and he also showed me, you know, the light without ever doing it on purpose, but not with psychedelics. So I didn't take any psychedelics to come to this point. It was a different story. So you can probably have different ways how to come to this, to see the light. For me, it was a post-traumatic stress disorder where I faced the darkness and I didn't run away. I just faced the darkness. And then I had this breakthrough. And also what you said then, that not everyone is supposed to be awakened. You know, this would go back to Hinduism, that everyone, you know, is like kind of stepping up until you reach nirvana. And I also had this conversation with this my mentor, and who was also then the investor into a framework which should enable network states. And we spoke here in Malta, really high level, just like how we are doing it at the moment about humanity. And I said, just like Raoul, how do we want to reach 100% of humanity? And he said, no, 4%. And I was like, why? Why 4%? How do you come to this number of 4%? And he told me without 100% certainty, we need to reach 4%, which would make sense because if humanity peaks at 10 billion, that's 400 million. And those, for example, would be people who have the ability to leave their countries because they are remote workers. Also, then what you said about leaders, and like the future leaders, you know, we should not be leaders in the sense we have power over assets or over people, but we should be more like gate openers. So standing next to our tribe, next to our society, and opening the gates for them. Yeah, and I also
kind
agree.
of guiding.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
guiding.
guiding. And also I agree that the light is feminine, definitely. Yeah.
I think that it's we do need guides, and I do believe what you said about ayahuasca and psychedelics in general. And I think that my purpose in this destiny is to awaken minds, is to challenge minds, is to give the possibility of choice to people who don't have and believe they have. So I think that legalizing psychedelics around the world, as they were 50 years ago, yeah, there was no legalization on psychedelics until it happened that it became illegal for a number of reasons that I don't want to go into right now, but it's very unfair. It's for me, it's disgusting because the idea that we cannot communicate with nature, that we cannot receive the message from Mama Gaia because someone decided that this is bad is obscene to me. It is a true war on the mind. So for me, psychedelics should be in the mainstream conversation, and they are coming. They're coming. You know, there is going to be a clinic opening here in Malta. It's going to be the first in Europe for psychedelic assisted therapy. So it's kind of getting into the mainstream. The governments are talking. It's happening, and I do think that that is going to bring about more open minds, and it's happening all over the place. I think. I reached the conclusion that psychedelics are the way that we can communicate to the source, and that's very important for humanity, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it allows us to remember who we truly are and how connected we are. It helps us to transcend the myth of separation.
Exactly.
And it's not only with psychedelics. If you face the dark night of the soul, you go into your shadows and you do the real work, you will achieve the same states. It's not like everybody should have psychedelics.
Of course,
Although
no, I don't.
I think it's your birthright, actually. Before you die, I recommend anybody to at least try it once, you know. Then you don't need to make it part of your life, but try it once, you know. But it can be a breath work, meditation. You know, there's so many spiritual technologies, right? True. What I find so beautiful about, especially the work with this vine, is it shows you how it's all connected through the direct experience. And one of my partners in Gaianet, he once got the message from the plant that we use holacracy to make decisions. So we are a decentralized organization and we distribute our authority. And it was shown to him that ayahuasca is the same as holacracy, because the goal in that is you got to let go and flow with life. And holacracy is not a predict and control, a pre-designed waterfall structure, how we will grow an organization or build products and services, but it's about sensing and responding in the here and now. A network state or network of cities with decentralized government is the same concept. It's the neural link of how the jungle works, how the forest works, how we can mimic that in a way. And these are the laws of nature, how everything is interconnected and spinning around and dependent on each other. In a way, it's all the same concept. That's why these technologies are so useful for people to get into this line of thinking. And again, you just give it to them. And if they're willing to surrender, they will receive this gift and then they will naturally start walking this path.
I mean, I just had an idea. Anyway, if you see AI and if you see the international competition popping up between different jurisdictions, you know, we need smart people and we need to be better than others. For example, if we want to, you know, be a competitor against China, we need to have new forms of education anyway. You know, we need to rethink education, and soon we can push this question like into the mainstream. We need to have some kind of a meta education. This needs to change anyway. So maybe then we have the window of opportunity to speak about this. But yeah,
maybe a little bit. I'm curious for you guys about around your own governments and the stories. I've been following some debates in the Dutch government recently. Normally not interested in politics, but sometimes people send forward snippets in Telegram groups that are about consciousness and awareness. And they send through some really amazing talks of some of our people in government who are saying, like, our democracy is falling apart, people. Brussels holds all the power. The Dutch voice of the voters is not important anymore. Are we awake here? Yeah. And I see this in European.
You see, it's the damn AI.
Never overstep what you can say. Don't speak about government. So the answer is peace and love. We don't come into confrontation. FBI, please let our.
It's the second time. Dan, we told you cannot change the world, man. Government, Brussels has the power, yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he comes back, but of course, more and more people, you know, we are still living in proper countries, you know. In Germany, we can have this conversation, what we are having right now in public television. Nothing will happen to you and you will have the chance to speak up. And what happened in the last 3 years, we are kind of processing this now. In the German media, the question is, do they have answers? No, because they cannot think outside of the box. No one has an answer. They think more regulation can solve it, but it doesn't. So yeah.
Exactly.
To answer Dan's question without
the proper reply. No, the what he was saying is very interesting. If it's being spoken like this in a government, in a how do you call the place where the politicians gather?
Parliament.
Parliament, yes. So I think that psychedelics should be like a mandatory requirement for any political.
I give you the answer. I think, Raoul, we needed people who are good workers in the last 100 years, you know? just wake up in the morning, and the economic success was directly related with the time you put in. For this, you need to see people as production factors and not, tell them, oh, first figure out who you are, because then you will not swallow this bitter pill. Now the economy is changing with AI. It's no longer about how much time you put in. It's about the intelligence you put in, okay? Because AI is already smarter than us, like in specific tasks, not smarter than us, but can emulate intelligence. And then what is our input? Our input is no longer 8 hours. Our input is like the next level of consciousness. If we want to outperform China, because China will not reach the next level of consciousness with their strict governance system. They are like 50 years behind when it comes to how seeing a human, They are still in this, they are production factors. And we saw humans like this until recently. So it's not just about us who are rebellious and freedom lovers. It's just a necessity, I think, to keep our wealth in Europe,
Well, in the West, AI is advancing faster in the West than in China, according to Elon Musk. I think that the advent of some kind of new robot that will take over the monotonous, difficult physical tasks that humans have is quite close. I think we are, let's say, maybe in the next 2010, maybe even less. Who knows? Now everything is going to be exponential. We are at the point that we were in the beginning of the chip, that we decided every 2 years we're going to make it half as big, and now we have quantum computing. So I think that is going to be a very big, steep growth in technology, which will bring about a huge, big, steep growth in unemployment.
Dan is coming back.
Okay.
Dan, we told you, not go into local politics. AI will instantly cancel you. Should we try it again? Maybe there are specific keywords.
I was talking positive. I was not burning anybody down. I was being actually, I was awakening in the government also. I guess they also don't want me to talk about.
We already discussed basically the answer. I can agree, like still, in our countries, in Germany, we can have an open discussion about anything, okay? You can still be in television and speak about this. Nothing will happen. But what is missing is not the possibility to speak freely, but the answers, because they think in such a strict box, and this is where we come in. And then I shut up, but we should reason up from the most fundamental truth, like our most fundamental truth, reason up from there and always use this and see it like an IT project. I'm an IT developer, and then you break down the problems into the most fundamental truth and you build your system based on that. And you don't think what was before. This is a wrong thinking.
Exactly. Because we're living in a world that for me is like we are operating in a world where we don't know anything about our own existence, apart from like maybe we know who built the Empire State Building, but we don't know who built the pyramids. So, and we don't even know what is life. And there's no definition. And yet we live in an illusion in which money is a fact. It's like it exists, and that's how we should be. And democracy, we got to vote, and that is what gives us the power. It's hilarious. Careful, Dan. Don't say much because you're gonna be cut again. Brazil is tough on censorship.
But those things are possible, no? From a technical standpoint, why not? Like,
yes.
Yeah, well, I think that brings it down to an earlier question: how can we convince more people? Yeah, and I think that's by analyzing the systems, the patterns, how it's falling apart, what's happened before in other civilizations, and show that we're on a self-terminating path. Many people are already open and aware that biodiversity loss and everything, the food system's collapsing, and then show them that that their coordination failures, their partly because we don't know how to coordinate an effort towards solving these meta problems, and then show that how decentralized governance, other ways of value accounting, et cetera, might be solutions to this, and we should start heavy experimenting. And maybe people become, regular folks will become more aware, like, yeah, I've got kids, I want our kids to still have a nice future, we should probably change our course. But how? Most people just don't know how also, and there's not enough stories of alternatives. And well, a network state is one of the solutions we should experiment the heck out of, like full force. That's something, how can we connect multiple people together with a similar set of values, similar set of, similar mindset, really like-minded and really resonating to create new tribes. And then how can we also get them to live together and then see how that feels, and then bring in the people who do not believe in that in those kinds of groups of people, and they can feel for themselves what's kind of like the vibe, and what's the quality of life there, and present these alternatives.
True. Yes, presenting alternatives to what can you do with your present? I think, like, what does it mean, right, to be here now for you? Anybody who wants to know. Some people think, oh, I'm here to be a doctor or a carpenter or whatever they think. But if we change the narrative, if we change the story around each other, then people will see and start feeling the vibes you're talking about, and the vibe is love. It's it's quite an easy answer, live the moment, choose love, and manifest. What do you think about manifestation then? Like manifesting thoughts into reality?
I have different parts that can answer to that. There's one part of me that feels it's utter bullshit, and there's another part that has many, let's say, live examples of when I was thinking about something and the synchronicities just appeared before me. And when I actually zoom out over the last 10 years of my life, it's nothing but magic. So, and I really know that I've been playing a part in that, but there's still this other voice. Maybe it's also just the program of my Dutch mindset, and you control and you plan and you organize, and there's no such thing as a great mystery. Even though I've had many mystical experiences, this is a very persistent kind of belief. So I'm mixed about it.
Well, being a rocket scientist, I understand that being mystical kind of took a different turn.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
was there a change for you when before you tried the first ayahuasca and after, like the way you thought about reality?
Oh yeah, completely. Completely. Because I had 3 experiences in that first ceremony. The first one was experience my soul, my eternity. So I just, the physical dissolved, but I was still there, and I was fully present and in the room. So I was not out of my body in another reality. I was there looking around, but there was no sensation of the physical anymore, but I was still there. So that was one. The second one, I was lying on the ground, and all of a sudden I was just like overwhelmed with a sense of love that I've never experienced before. And I felt the heartbeat of our planet. And it was just radiating out of the planet that she has unconditional love for her children, humanity, because we're born out of her. And doesn't matter how many mistakes we make or how much we fuck up, she still loves us. That sense of love changed a lot of things for me. I was on a pink cloud for a month, and before that I was having regular bouts of depression and lots of distractions. And the third thing was at the end of the night, I started moving around, and there was an inflow of energy in my body, which I also can't put into words, but I exploded like I imagined the sensation of the Big Bang. It was that kind of coming inside and that. And that last point was for me like, whoa, what does that mean? Do I have, is this part of my work? Is this part of my path? So I took many years to, well, actually the ceremony never stopped, Raul. I started with the ceremony and it never stopped. So
exactly. We are still in there, man. And I'm glad I've met you. Boom, fist bumping on virtual. My brother. I had similar experiences of dissolving into everything and realizing that the planet is actually us. It's our own consciousness in a different state, contacting us, communicating with us, telling us ideas, and giving us creativity and love. And maybe it's even more. Maybe I think we're the whole universe. Yeah. So it did change a lot for me coming as a software engineer, complete atheist, thinking that life will end after the brain, and now having even more questions, but at least knowing that it is not the brain.
Yeah. 2 software engineers and one rocket engineer discussing humanity and that the world is feminine. Yeah, but like let's have 2 more questions and then I think we wrap it up. So one question is, do we need money? So our cheesy idea about our form of money, it's not like that you totally replace the existing fiat system. It has a reason to exist and it will exist in a hybrid times. We should not think about utopias. It kind of makes sense also that you control this from a central standpoint. Anyway, we have this cheesy idea of a karma token. So my advisor calls it a Jesus coin. I called it the karma token. And also how we came up with this idea was really magically. And then also Vitalik, he calls it like soul-bound tokens. And our idea is of this currency that everyone who joins us gets, let's say, 10 karma tokens. And you can spend those karma tokens to, for example, come to our events and take part in our meetups. And this can be diversified in the future. And then you pay me 1 karma token, and after you came 10 times to our events, you cannot come anymore. And the only way you can come is by offering something and also earning karma tokens. But on the other hand, my advisor told me, Daniel, the goal is not to introduce new patterns. The goal is to remove patterns. So I am somewhere in between. Does it make sense to have our own currency, which is based on karma, or not? That's an open question. How do you see this? Do you need a tender to exchange energy in your resource-based economy? Or how do you do it? How will money look like?
No, we see this differently. One of the problems why our money system is so destructive is because bad behavior is incentivized. If you're really good at fucking up many lives and destroying the planet, you get rewarded for it. It's unfortunate, but this is how it is right now. So that needs to change. I think we need many transition points. So we need alternative currencies to bridge to a new reality. Our future vision is a contribution-based economy or a meritocracy, where how amazing would it be, guys? No? If all the good you do in your life is somehow transparent to the first new person that you meet, and they see straight away, oh, this guy has contributed that much to that community, to those people's lives, helped that person achieve new states, has fixed this many things in their lives. And you get like a kind of a reputation score. But all of this comes with a lot of risk. Like a reputation score is often, let's say, user rated. So by the end user, we would have to validate each other. And there's a lot of risks with that. So the most ideal form would be what's so-called open access economy or resource-based economy, where all of your basic needs are fulfilled, but you do have to contribute in a certain way. I don't know how this is exactly going to look like, but in the far, far, far future, we can have full automation and pretty much eradicate 95% of the work, and people will just be liberated in their creativity. And then still what you would want to do, you want to have some sort of accounting system. You want to have, like what I said of who has done how much good, and you want to incentivize the contribution to the greater good and to the local community and the people around you. Doing good should be rewarded, and doing good should not give you more power or more status, but if it simply gives you more recognition, you know, what I really like by the Melanese people, I believe they're living on the Fiji Islands. They're an indigenous group there living on small islands. When they live on one island, there's lots of food. They don't need to build too many houses because it's always nice weather. So they don't need to work too much, right, to survive. when the group gets too big of one island and there's not enough food anymore, they split up and they move, half of them move to another island. So that's one nice thing. They don't deplete the place and they stay in balance. But the other thing is they have the so-called big man culture. And that means if you've contributed and done a lot of good things for the society, you are allowed, you become the big man, yeah? And you're allowed to speak on the stage. That means you get the place, the position to talk to the group. But it gives you no power. You do not get more voting power, decision power. Nobody even have to listen to you, okay? But you get this honorable place. It's kind of like the chieftain of a good tribe, you know, or a medicine man who's done a lot of deep inner work and then gets the gift of the tribe, the honor to work with the medicine. But he does not per se become a dictator of the tribe. He doesn't hold the power. They still sit together in consensus and decide together. And well, these Melanese people also work like this. They work with these consensus mechanisms of circles and talking, and it's kind of decentralized. So mimicking this or looking at societies that are a little more egalitarian and not per se class-based and trying to scale that into a network of cities, I think that's kind of our line of thinking where we should be heading.
That's beautiful, man. I didn't know about that tribe. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and I just want to...
I was thinking of, now talking still about cryptos, maybe like a science project associated crypto coin. Let you contribute with science, with new research, or with new technology, something people think about or work on in labs, and that type of thing would also create some kind of meritocracy into so we can use this technology now for a new world, and maybe the first city could even be a research center that would bring about so much new technology to the world, for free or something.
And so that's our idea, to have a prototype environment where we bring together, we build several different neighborhoods, different kinds of architecture, different kinds of governance, different kinds of value exchange with each other, and we try them out. So that's what we envision here in Brazil. And you can look up the project by Ralph Horat. It's called The Next Generation Village, which is really awesome. He also wants to introduce crypto and he calls that a regulatory sandbox, a special regulatory environment, special economic zone, right? Which there are many of in the world, in a safe to fail environment where you can bring academics, the corporate world, and government together, where you have special legislations why it becomes easier to do fast prototyping, rapid prototyping without it harming the outside world. But then you have to try and test, because
iterations, and then get a new society and you get blocked, man. The CIA is onto you, Daan Gorter.
Oh. We wait one more time, Raoul, and
yes,
we finish this, and then we wrap it up. But it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, I think. Are you gonna continue recording, or
I will cut it anyway after, so I will not release
okay.
this. Of course.
I think that we could, when he mentions names, maybe we can just put like, this is the person.
Or like in the description when we release the video, we put the Amazon link there.
You iterate on the ideas and the and then you reach a new society and you get blocked.
Again, I don't know what's going on. I need to do a bit of a tech check today and a little hardware checking, because when I'm on the cable, it seems to break. I'm on the Wi-Fi now. I want to see how this goes. So did you hear me talk about did you hear me say about the Next Generation Village by Ralph Horat in Switzerland?
No, we didn't.
Okay, so we envision to create a prototype here in Brazil where we bring together different neighborhoods with different models of governance and value exchange. And there's also a project in Switzerland, part of the Gaianet network. It's called The Next Generation Village by Ralph Horat. And his design is to use also crypto, other value exchange models in he calls it a regulatory sandbox, which is like a special economic zone where you bring together corporate, academics, and government to do rapid prototyping and innovation of things that are not possible in the regular society because of everything is so standardized and regulated, right? So he wants to create a prototype village or city also. And once that works, make more of them in the world and connect them in a so-called cloud city, which is very similar to the Venus project. Again, it's a global information system of new ways of working with our resources and each other. So that's a really, really great project for the people to look at, who is listening also. Next, I think it's nextgenvillage.com or nextgenerationvillage.com. It's either one of these URLs. And another really interesting project is the Consilience project by Daniel Schmachtenberger, who I mentioned earlier, who is a great thinker of our time, looking at the meta crisis, the generator functions, and what are the problems. It's the wrong incentivization, the linear extractive model, et cetera, et cetera. And they are also working on many alternatives and solutions. And he's a great fan of the regen Web3 space. And he's got some kick-ass podcasts with Kevin Owoki of the Green Pill podcast. So if you want to go really deep and you want to open your mind to how it's all working and why these network states are such an awesome idea, then also this is, yeah, I'd almost say obligatory study material, but it's very relevant. So go for it.
I'm trying to write down the names that you're saying so that we can maybe put some information, but I can't spell them. So if you can send them over.
We can put them later into the description. Yeah. And there's one more thing maybe we should speak about. Dan, you mentioned that storytelling will play an important part. In the recent weeks, somehow I came to the conclusion that art could be a big leverage. How could this look like? Which story could we tell? Which story could the media pick up, and what transports a lot of positivity? Do you have an idea?
I really like Charles Eisenstein's work in this. He is very good at telling new stories of the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. And this is basically the story of the myth of separation towards the remembering that we are one family on one planet, a finite planet with finite resources. And that the only way for our long-term survival, so I'm talking for the next hundreds of years, is to achieve a state of collaboration over competition, which does not mean competition is bad. Competition is great because it selects, and people who have better solutions are more favored, which helps us innovate more. So there's nothing wrong with competition, but we need to become anti-rivalrous at some point. We need to acknowledge that. Some people say, I wish the aliens would arrive because we'd have one external enemy and maybe humanity would unite. And we need to tell the story of what could happen when we unite as a species. And we need to tell the story of how nature is naturally selective for the best solutions. And at the same time communicating, and there's this interconnected web of resources. Like, isn't it amazing that when an old tree dies, it uses the fungal network to talk to the other trees around and looks which of the youngest trees are most in need of its nutrients. And before dying, ejects this into the ground through the fungal network and helps the new ones grow. Like, wow, man, that's the story we need to tell. The old world is dying. And where is the most fertile ground for the old world to release its nutrients into a newly emerging reality? And that's just talking about how nature works. And we are nature. So I think these are the stories we need to remember. And also that how amazing it is to live like, I don't know, tribal way, archaic way, remembering our connection, but finding our own unique essences and our colors of the rainbow. And that when we bring that together, then yeah, we create a huge symphony. I don't know. I like the movie Bill and Ted Save the World. I think it's Bill and Ted 3 with Keanu Reeves. And they have to travel back and forth to time to find the song or pieces of song and artists together. They bring them now. And if they don't do that before midnight, I don't know, the world ends. And 1 minute before midnight, they found like the amazing musicians of 1,000 years in the past. They bring them to the here and now, and they all start to play the song together. And it's that. We all have our own instrument. And when we tune the right frequencies and music together as a group, man, like we create a new reality. It's really that simple. So I think those are stories that are really important to be shared around the fire. Yeah.
And maybe movies are also a good idea. You know, we have Star Trek, but people don't believe in it.
Guys, I think it was an intense conversation. This is what I want to see in the network state space, you know, openness, and we don't know which questions to ask. We don't know the answers. I think that's the way to go. I think we will succeed, and maybe in 5 years, it will not be called a network state. It will just be the door opener, you know, towards just this awareness that something else is positive. You know, just I made a joke with Raoul when we said we use Bitcoin to buy weed in the darknet in 2012, you know. And then what came out of it is that people understood what money is, you know. They understood that this is just a concept. Fiat money is a concept, and that something else can coexist. And I think we need to do the same now with network states, that nation states, countries are a concept, and that something else can coexist. So maybe that's for now, like in the next 2 or 3 years, what will happen. And money will come, so definitely. So to wrap it up, how can people get involved with Gaianet, and how can they find you?
Yeah, they can go to the website, Gaianet.Earth. There they can read all about the mission, and there's a button in the right top to get connected, to get involved, it's called. People can become a network member of the Gaianet, but we are an invite-only vouching network, so you have to know somebody in the network. So what they can do is send an email and with a little bio and why they want to be connected. And if somebody within our network feels called, they can go and meet them. And if the connection is there, then they will invite them into the network. So that's one way of getting in. The other way of getting in is we have an apprenticeship for self-organization. So anybody interested in distributed authority, distributed governance, I highly recommend to actually become really good at some self-organizing practice. And we use a fusion of holacracy with some social technologies that we've developed within Gaianet to keep the resonance between the people. We do this in a very professional way. So you are asked to commit for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of hours, but you're really going to grow because we have the pioneers and pretty much the inventors of self-organization as our advisors and in our network. So they're available for us. That's how we got really good at it. Then you can become a core contributor. If you already are kick-ass at self-organization, even better. Then we have many roles to fill within the organization. And of course, you're set free because that's what this is all about. When you work in holacracy, anything is allowed. And then there's many other ways that they can read on the Get Involved page. And if they're interested to be connected with any project or they have any needs, then we also have a support line. So this is a help button where you can get a Gaianet operator on the line and they will note down your needs and then we distribute that in the network. Because our mission is to unite the contributors to this new paradigm in co-creation. So we are here at service for you if you need connections in our ecosystem, if you want to attract people for your project, or you need to find partners to work with, whatever it is that you need, then you can use this support line. I think those are the main ways to get involved in Gaianet at the moment.
Okay, and if manifestation would work, for how much initial seed funding, how much money are you looking for from this potential American Russian oligarch who is sitting on billions and knows he needs to give back?
Look, man, for Gaianet right now, $1 million would really help us develop further.
But
so that's
easy.
Roughly.
That's easy. Trust me.
No, I know that's easy, but that's like what we would need for the first year of Gaianet to grow organically and continue what we're doing. But to build these hubs that we are talking about, both what Ralph would need in Switzerland, what Travis would need for our event, what we would need for our prototype, is around $20 billion for each hub. So those are kind of the 20 billion
for each
billion.
hub.
That's a realistic number.
But then you would have maybe other funding methods, about co-ownership and something maybe. But let's just talk about.
I would not touch that. No,
okay.
I will not touch that. No, and I think Ralph also is aligned with that. Travis is also, well, he's still in between. But there are many projects, if people want to invest in these kinds of living environments, we have these projects of people who use private money, right? Who do not work with venture capital, do not work with large funds. They
of course.
Privately, and there's beautiful examples of that, how it could work, but we don't want to touch that because you need an overarching governing like a real estate company who brings in the money, builds the stuff, and then decides everything for the people. We don't think that's going to lead to that kind of liberation.
Okay.
It's a way.
So if someone with 1 million daily fluctuation on their bank account wants to reach nirvana, go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, like this is like my approach. $1 million to get started for 1 year to finance, no?
Yeah, for Gaianet, yes.
But we need to make them accountable. Like I had this opportunity to make people accountable who sit on a lot of money, but it didn't work out. Like still they were looking for capitalist KPIs.
Yeah.
If those people were enlightened people, So
yeah.
But it will happen.
So what did they do? Did they buy a yacht?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm joking.
But yeah, let's wrap it up. Then the last words are yours, I think.
Well, thank you. No, thank you, Dan. Thank you both, you Daniel and Dan. Let's continue to manifest and do more of these. Let's invite more people. Talk about it. Have these conversations and put it out there. Wake some minds. Anything else you want to tell the world?
Yeah, I like to close off with encouraging people to go inside themselves and to go on a quest of self-exploration, to find out who you are, what are your gifts, how do you want to contribute to other places, and really face your fears and your shadows, because there's so much gold there. The pot of gold is at the rainbow, and the rainbow is inside of your heart. And in Brazil, they call the heart the coração, which means coração, which is color in action. And I believe if we find our own unique color, then we can bring that into action, combined with other people, and we create this symphony of music, or all the colors of the rainbow, whatever you want to call it, the reuniting of the rainbow tribe. There's many of these stories out there in the world, and find your color and learn how to paint and create beauty with other people. That is so important. If there's one thing you do, then it's that. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. So I will let the world know about this one. I was walking around one day here in Malta, and I said, today there's going to be a rainbow. And 3 hours later, there was the biggest and most beautiful double rainbow that I've ever seen. So I do believe manifestation exists, and I found it. I found the shadows turned into the rainbow. So it's possible. So if there's anyone who is depressed or has PTSD or any kind of shadow in their mind and in their just tainting their moment, don't give up, because there is a way to find the rainbow and choose your color.
And the darkness is not that dark. What should happen to you? What?
Yeah. The worst thing that can happen is nothing, like nothingness.
Yeah. Resolved. Good, guys. It was really wonderful dialogue. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Peace
Ciao.
and love.
Thank you.
Onward, guys. Much
Ciao,
love.
ciao.
Bye, guys.
Questions? I think what would be interesting is, what are the first action steps, basically, what is the roadmap in the next 3 years or 5 years? And
Sure.
What is the moonshot idea? You know, like what is the long-term best outcome and what are the action steps in the next 5 years?
Okay, well, I'll start with the moonshot. What we aim, my wife and myself, is to create at least 12 cities in a period of about 18 years. So that's what we are aiming for. And we are going to start here in Alto Paraíso de Goiás in Brazil. We've been scouting lands, and there's about, what we've found so far, 100,000 hectares of land for sale. That's owned by about 10, 15 owners. So very few landowners that own massive pieces of land, which you cannot find in Europe. And our strategy for that is get the funding in, which my wife has been working on since 2016. And it's looking really promising. It's getting really close to completion where we can start buying a first plot, probably of 2,500 hectares, and bring in 30 families, start just with some rapid deployment homes, and then start working on a master plan for the first plot. And as soon as we have a working model, which also why I started Gaianet, to find people who can help with that. As soon as we have a working model, we want to scale that out to 4 other places where we already have contacts in Brazil, and then also start helping people in other countries. And we foresee that that's most likely this will happen in the South America, Central America, and in Africa. We also have the feeling that, well, the Western developed world is in a civilization collapse, and probably the third world places will be more fruitful and more likely to move through this collapse. So, and also because if you look at regulations and you look at land availability in, for example, America and Europe, it's very hard to acquire large pieces of land that you can create a city-like environment. So we are aiming to house around 150,000 people, I think, over a period of 10 years. And we hope that there's enough people that actually see it like this and actually want to live in this direction. So I think that's about our strategy and our moonshot.
Are you developing the 3D printing for building?
That will be part of this project.
Oh,
We are not, but it's part of our vision. Yeah.
Okay. So you're gonna have like a branch of your organization looking into improving and developing new technology for 3D printing buildings?
We have quite a radical view on this because we see that we need to have access to everything that you need in order to build a new civilization. So we are looking to acquire raw materials, mines, resources, light industry, heavy industry, and then go into manufacturing of all kinds of, new forms of construction, which has to be rapid deployment. So it has to be very easily scalable. So 3D printing will be part of the prototyping phase, but we'll also go for traditional mineral constructions with cement, and we also might do some bioconstruction. We have several architectural companies, engineering companies that work with sacred geometry and with all kinds of new forms of materials and construction methods.
And what about manpower to make all these things? Are you gonna have robots?
Yeah. At some point. But I don't think we will see that in the next 5 years, to be realistic. But who knows? Technology is developing fast, and we are 3D printing is amazing because then you can just print many homes and you don't need that many hands. So that would be advantageous.
The idea would be to print a whole city, right? Whole integrated city with everything that we need.
Yeah, but there's nobody has that capability at this moment on the planet. So
no, I know.
Would still have.
Yeah. This is what I think also something important that we need to look at to be able to make these cities.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Anybody, any questions to that?
What about governance system? What's the governance?
Christina is asking, what's the governance system?
Yeah. So within Gaianet, we've been practicing self-organization since 2020. And we got quite good at the use of holacracy. And also we have found, we made contact with the pioneers of self-organization. So the founders of holacracy and other people who started pioneering this in Europe. They're also our advisors. And we have a so-called symbiotic enterprise framework where we can integrate legal, people, and work context. So we know how to do this now for an organization. And we have one specific partner, which is called the Auravana project. And out there is already the project plan, the design, and the decisioning system laid out for an integrated network of cities. Now, if you're really interested in this subject and you want to dive really deep, then go to Auravana.Org. And basically, that's the prototype that we want to build. And this guy's been working on it for 20 years. And he's been here in Alto also. We're really close to him. And yeah, it's a set of standards for how to create community at the global level, but in an innovative, highly technological way. So that's how we see governance. It will be obviously participatory governance, and it will be a mix of liquid and deep democracy probably at scale, but we're going to start small anyway, so that's only for a later stage.
Thank you. I have a question.
One more question.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it similar? What are the differences and the similarities to the Venus project?
It's very similar in the sense that the aim is the same by using lots of automation and computing for resource allocation. And it is very different in the sense that we think that the Venus project is part of the World Economic Forum guys, and that they're not part of the NICE agenda. So that's one big difference. And we see that because they're not willing to share any of their ideas. It's very difficult to collaborate with them. We've all tried to make contact with them. And we wonder about the true intentions behind the project. So I think that is the difference. And I see that Auravana is actually the continuation and execution of what the Venus project could have been.
The other day, I invited Roxanne Meadows to speak at this event, yeah? And I sent her an email. And she actually replied, man. She replied, and then we had a little conversation. And she said, continue your good work. Mention Jacques Fresco.
Wow. But he died a few years ago. So she's continuing.
He died. He passed.
She was like the best.
It's a good one.
And
Great.
I also, are there any other questions in regards to this? Yeah, one more, wait. He's coming.
Perfect.
Hi. I know
Hello.
Brazil pretty well, so are you aware about the laws when you're buying land? I agree that you never will buy so much land, so many land, hectares in Europe or in the United States, but are you aware that you are being invaded by the movement without land? It's Movimento Sem Terra. They have the right. How will you protect your land that you buy for your idea against the legal side of their right to take your land away from you?
They won't take the land away. They will work in your fields and make your buildings. So it's great, actually. Let them in, man. Let everybody in.
No, it's a very valid and good question. And like I say, we're going to start relatively small with a land of 2,000 hectares and then acquire other lands. And we hope that humanity will still change and shift in consciousness, that we don't need to build walls and get heavy security. But it's very likely that we need to get armed forces to protect our project, the way the world is looking like now. So that will be our strategy.
And this is also the same discussion I had with the guys behind Prospera in Honduras. They are already one step further. They already signed an agreement for land. And I think the smart way is to decouple your assets and your governance as much as possible to the land. You know, you will never reach the perfect state, but that's the idea behind the network state, that someone could come and take your territory. You know, if I have a territory in Malta, a big building, they could take it from me. It's just a matter of time. But the idea of this network state will continue to exist because the governance is not only bound to a place. So yeah, it's never perfect. It's always in between 0 and 1. And I have 2 more questions also for you, because we see a lot of people joining our movements. Your movement, Coco Hub, every day we have 20, 30 signups and people are curious. The question is how we make them committed, number one, because a lot of people want to get active. Every day I'm on the phone with 5 people, how to make them committed, how to involve them, and at the same time, how to design the initial funding in the beginning. You know, there are ideas, you sell early citizenships for a little, like for a low price, and in the beginning they have higher voting rights. What is your idea? How can you design the funding, and how can you make people actually committed so that they actually act?
So the way we see the funding is that what we want to accomplish to create the true liberation for the human spirit is not going to happen with private money and private funding. So we do not want to create a commonly owned project, especially not in the beginning. We will have routes for people to invest money, but we see this more as creating a trust and a foundation and people becoming members of that. And we want to work with merit and not with ownership of property, because we see that most of the eco-villages in the world are, because of money power and struggles, are actually ego villages. And we fear that for our project too. So that's why we are working with money that's being liberated for humanitarian goals and for creating a prototype living environment that works without coercion, without a state, and ideally in the end also without trade. So that's a very unusual funding route that is not applicable for many other projects. But this is because of the context that my wife has made over the years. And how we see people to be engaged is we see a multi-leveled entry into the project of first coming to live in the town, living with some other people and some co-living, and then the people who are really excelling at that and are really contributing and they're really taking care of the collective, they move on to the second layer where there will be more freedom and more collective action until the moment that they enter in this project where you don't need to pay for your housing anymore and you are contributing because you really want to, in your heart, create this new reality. So it will be a trial and selection phase, which is essential for the success. Otherwise, we're going to get way too much trouble in the beginning and it's going to fail.
One more question, yeah?
How would you select people?
How is the recruiting process? How do you, what is the filter for the people who can move into the city?
Well, the filter is what I just described, that we are going to have to train and initiate people into living as community, because pretty much none of us understand what that actually means, including myself. I don't have years of practice living in community. And the way we select people is, well, through a variety of ways, but my wife is able to read people. She has indigenous roots, and in Europe this is kind of strange. Also, where I'm from, I used to be very skeptical about these things, but she has an ability to see more of the person. So that's our initial filter, to see the timelines of people, the lives of people, and also what they carry with them. But mainly how we're going to filter people is by seeing how they act, because what people say is not what they believe. You can only know what people believe through what they do. So it's really going to be a trial and error. And yeah, of course, we're going to have traditional selection procedures, traditional recruitment routes, like you would see in any organization or corporate, with resumes and work experience and skills and all of that. But then it's going to be about how people show up in the community, in work. And then we will see who will stay and who will leave.
What's the model, let's say, of the, how do you use tax?
Did you understand the question?
No, I didn't hear.
It was about how do you imagine tax?
Because in, let's say, traditional society, yes, it's a social matrix which is constructed and it serves the purpose. Basically, you pay certain money and it's distributed for common good. Let's say, paving the roads, doing the stuff. Now you're building a community, so there is a certain amount of money which has to be private, or there's no private. How does this exchange happen within you? So your currency or the
So how do you imagine your tax structure?
Tax, right? She asked. Taxes. Yeah. So on the one hand, to relate to the nation state level, we want to obtain or create a special economic zone where we get liberties, where we get tax exempts, and there's many of those already in Brazil. And how we see that internally is that the project itself at some point is going to be so productive and effective because it's a complete new configuration of society that there's going to be a lot of extra value being produced, which is actually, if you look at our whole planet, we are producing overvalue all the time as a species. We're creating way more value, way more wealth than that we are using. But that value is being extracted to a very small group of people at very large numbers. That's why many people are suffering on this planet. So what we envision is that once our project reaches maturity and it has scale, that it has a full stack of services and products, that we are going to be so much more efficient than a traditional city, that all that overvalue can use to interact with the outside world and to transact what we cannot construct ourselves. But internally, we don't need to work with money anymore. We don't need to work with trade anymore. We're not going to need currency anymore. It's going to be based on your reputation and your merit. How much are you contributing to the greater good of this community? And that we need to do accounting for. So we will have calculation models, resource allocation, et cetera, but we will have open access to everybody. There will not be no paywall for no single service that you need to fulfill your basic needs. And that's the vision behind this project.
I find what you're saying very interesting. So this is a question and a comment, not from skepticism, but from curiosity. In the beginning, you said you were looking for or were anticipating the first sort of, you used the word families. Do you recall that? And I find that interesting because while I don't know the whole scheme of your project, when you said that you were still figuring out, and you were all figuring out and learning to understand the concept of freedom and governance and all this, if you're looking at an 18-year timeline for your moonshot or whatever, you will, if you're looking for families, also be talking about people that kind of either grew up or were born into or formed partnerships within that system already, right? So one of the two kinds of typically not, forgive the use, value inserting groups are the much older people that are no longer as active in their former ways, and children, because they have some unique needs, although they also have many benefits that they provide. And so I'm just curious how you anticipate managing something like that, because the management of young people and of children, right, is one of the things that in principle would require quite a lot of ideological formation in advance, that one would have to have a pretty clear idea of how that's organized and how they're being educated. So that's what I'm kind of curious about.
So what is exactly the question?
Well, when you say that you're still all figuring out this idea of freedom, if you begin already with families, then you must already have an idea of what those children are entering into, because you will be providing something like education, unless I'm misconstruing that.
No, of course. So we need a team first. It's just me and my wife here in Alto. We have connections globally and throughout Brazil, but these people are stuck in jobs and, you know, their obligations of life. When the funding arrives, we can liberate them from their current day-to-day tasks. And we're going to bring 30 to 40 families to build a first team. And for those 30 to 40 families, we need to start a school here. And we're going to find the best that we can get. And there are radically new models of education. So like even Waldorf and these model Steiner schools is actually a little bit outdated, but we have a good sense of what you need to develop a child into a healthy human being with good boundaries, with healthy self-leadership, self-governance, with critical thinking, with a set of basic skills. So we have quite a good general idea of what is required, and we just need some kick-ass people, which we are gathering in Gaianet in the network by already finding other kinds of similar projects on the world that are also want to create these new forms of living environments. So through our network, we will find educators and teachers and that teach in a very different way than the traditional system. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just that you have a pretty good idea of the values that you're importing. So thank you.
Yeah. But the values for the project are much clearer. So that can be all read in the Aravana documentation of what is a set of standards of how to create a community type society. So to elaborate on what that actually means is at this moment we have a market state configuration of our society, whether you call it capitalism or something else, even socialism, they're all a market, a so-called free market, where companies, peoples create products and services, and that's regulated by a state with a monopoly on violence. That's the current configuration of our society. And what we want to create a prototype of is a community type configuration of society that, instead of the optimization for profit, because that's what the market state optimizes for, of just extraction of resources, extraction of wealth, and optimizing profit for short-term shareholder profit, we are looking to create a configuration of society that optimizes for the human need fulfillment of the people living there and ecological restoration. So it's a whole different view and mindset of what the society has as a common goal, basically.
Do you know what is the Brave Generation Academy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, if you want to go look at it, because it's the type of school that you can scale and just start new ones in multiple places. There's like hubs of schools like this, and they are supposed to be like what you were saying.
Cool, awesome. Look it up.
I also think the problem of education will be solved by technology in the short term. You know, you can have great apps, you know, teaching your kids critical thinking, and you can minimize the 12 years to 7 or 8, and then just let go.
Totally. And my wife is pretty wild in her visions of what education is going to look like for the kids of this city, that technology will have advanced more. We'll have holograms with a very healthy form of artificial intelligence behind it. And the kids will be taught by Merlin or by Albert Einstein, and they will be in the nature, and it will be a direct experience. And it's a combination of not very engaging and interactive, and yeah, it's going to be an adventure, man, to go to school. Like, if you get taught by the prophets of our time, when we look at the most breakthrough intelligent people of our past, they had very, very intelligent and wise teachers. And they started teaching them at the age of 4 or 5 already. So we envisioned something like that. It's a radically different way of educating kids. That's completely necessary, obviously.
Mentoring, yeah.
Yeah, mentoring.
Then I think your talk was really impactful. The people are quiet. That's a good sign. And how can they join you? Like, how can they get involved? How can they get active? Because here in Malta, let's say, we also have some communities, they do really great work, you know? So if someone is here as a representative of those communities, like, how can they join you? How can they get involved?
Well, they can write me on Telegram, which is my first name, Daan, with double A, @Daan Telegram. That's my handle. So if anybody wants to come in direct contact, you can send me a message on Telegram. Also, the guys here have my contact. And you can go to the website Gaianet.Earth, which is our network. And there's a button there of get involved and contact us. If you drop an email there, then I will read that. I'm managing that contact form. Yeah, that's pretty much the ways to get connected. We are an invite-only, vouched-based network. So only through personal invitations, people enter into the Gaianet network, and they vouch for the people that they bring into the network, that they steward them and take care of them also in case of conflict. So we would have to make a connection for you. But there's many ways to get involved, and you can read that on our website. We would also love to have more contributors to our organization. And the benefits of that are enormous, because you will meet many, many radically new projects. You will learn much more about these concepts that I talked about, and you can practice self-organization at a professional level within our team, which you can, use in your work, your private life, and in your future network state. Because the technology is not going to do it. It's going to happen in the trust between people and the heart connection that we make between each other. It's going to happen through new forms of relationship. And just the tech is not going to be enough. We need the tech, but we need the human connection more than the tech. So.
Okay. So how do you think psychedelics can help in this change of consciousness?
Of for me, they are like the gateway, because that's what transformed everything for me. In particularly, ayahuasca did it. And ayahuasca brought me to Brazil, to this town where I'm living. And ayahuasca is also incredibly like present in the network of Gaianet. It's crazy how many people enter into the network who've had mystical or unity experiences with this plant medicine or with mushrooms. And well, we're in a psychedelic renaissance, no? Like it's like the revival of psychedelics, which like got killed in the 70s, and there's a massive revival going on, and it's drawing people together, and it's also ejecting people out of this myth of separation, that we are individual and there's the survival of the fittest. And this is what the psychedelics can help with, and it will be an integral part of our project, because our entry points will have initiation centers where we will work with this medicine with very well-trained facilitators to help them heal, really, and help them connect.
Do you think that's one of your entrance criteria? You'll have to like guide before?
Well, yeah, we've thought about that. I don't know if that's necessary, but it is a really good idea. I think that all the politicians should at least drink 10 times ayahuasca before they enter into office. All world leaders should at least have 10 well-facilitated experiences, because it helps them to see how connected we are and that we really are brothers and sisters on this planet.
I can tell you something. I think some really powerful people are totally aware of it, totally, but they took a wrong turn in their life. You know, the people I spoke to, they are 100% aware. Still, they are praying to the false gods. So, yeah.
Yeah.
One more question. Okay, so the first question from the lady is, what do you think about illegal immigration? And then she will ask you the second follow-up question.
What do I think about illegal immigration?
Yes.
Well, I can only answer that at the highest meta level, because I'm not an expert in migration. But in my world, illegal immigration is a error or a disease of the market state system. Because the first world is it's saying, oh, we did so good and we innovated and we have all this wealth and development, but they did it over the back of the third world. So many people are suffering and having a hard time, and then they move. So yeah, I think illegal immigration is an error.
So living in Malta, we have a lot of immigrants coming here. So they come to Maltese waters and they pretend that they are dying. So in this case, that's like what is government? Like, should we save them or let them die to the sea?
So the question is.
Yes, I know, but if there is
I will explain it to you later. So I will translate it. So the question is, there are people who are breaking the law because they are forced to break the law in order to take their life into their own hands. If you are from a country which is stuck in a lot of trauma or whatever, okay, and you are forced to take a boat from Africa to Malta, the question is, I think I want to break it down. I think the idea that migration is something negative needs to be updated to the year 2023, that we come up with a new idea of migration, that migration is not something bad, but actually benefiting the countries. For example,
I think the question was that the people come together will go through a recruitment process. So I guess this is moving the
yeah. So the question is basically, so what I just mentioned, a new form of migration. So if you take a nomad visa, so you have a filter that only people can come to a country if they earn, let's say, 2,700 euros, which is a new form of migration. You can look at it from a humanist standpoint. I think that's not right, you know? But still, this new way needs to happen because millions and billions of people will migrate because of climate change, whatever, you know? And I don't know how to break down the question without giving.
illegally migrate to the
So if you have a lot of influx of people into your city, what are you gonna do?
We won't. We won't. Because we need to have a multi-layered entry approach. So people need to show we'll have open access for everybody, okay? Anybody can knock the door. It needs to be inclusive. But you have to earn your place. And you have to go through trial and tribulation to show that you can go one level further and closer to that liberation. And that will filter the people out. So, and I personally believe that there is very, very few people on the planet, first of all, interested in this way of living, because it also requires sacrificing a lot of things, like personal belongings and all kinds of things. I don't think we're going to have this influx of a lot of people migrating here.
You'd be surprised, man. In some places, if you're gay, you're gonna be killed or something.
No, but yeah, our projects, we're talking about 150,000 people in maybe 10 places over a period of 10 years. It's not that big. It's not like we're going to build million people cities, with millions of housing. It will be for a small group, and it will be for a very specific frequency of being and living, which is not going to be for everybody. Many people are not even going to want this. So.
Listen, how close is your place to the Chapada de Verdaderos?
We are at Chapada de Verdaderos. This is Chapada de Verdaderos.
I was there 3 months ago. I didn't know about you. See you next over.
Now you know. Next time.
I was there for 8 months, bro. What the fuck? We're gonna have our yassa together over there.
Yeah, we serve. So next time you're welcome, and we'll have a cup.
Let's say that families will actually join it, right? They have kids, and people will grow up, kids will grow up, and they actually.
Can you hear? Can you hear?
No, when people are too far away from the mic, I cannot follow the conversation.
I'll ask again. So he's asking, there's going to be families living there, and there's children growing. And what if a child becomes somehow violent or steals or does something negative? What happens there?
Again, this is also very well described in the Aravana documentation of how justice will work in a community-type society. And it's a form of restorative justice. It's not penalizing, but it's in a way based also on African tradition of, someone told me yesterday from Africa, he said, we don't have the word sorry in our vocabulary. People all make mistakes, and when they make mistakes, they put them in the circle and they give them a lot of love and a lot of care. And they understand that they are being violent or aggressive or a criminal behavior because their needs are not being met. So what we are going to aim for is for maximizing meeting the needs of the people in the living environment. And I don't know if that's going to completely eradicate criminal behavior, but it's going to definitely decimate it to like a few %. And those people might need other things, like what you see in some Scandinavian countries, how they are now, a prison is not a prison anymore. A prison is a treatment center where they help people to heal their trauma and their pain. And it's going to be the same for the kids that grow up in a place like this that show unwanted behavior. We're going to help them with love, with care, with finding out why they're doing what they're doing, and then help them resolve that. And that's restorative justice. I don't know why we don't have that on the planet, but because we already know that punishing doesn't work. Like criminals that you put in prison usually come out more criminal after you've had them in prison because they learn really good tricks from other people there, and they don't heal their trauma, why they became criminal. So that's how we see it. Help the people heal why they have that behavior.
Anyone else? Dan, I will talk to you forever, man.
Be welcome.
We have Maria that will speak about freedom. Maria, come here, man. Come say hi. There's many of us trying to tell the world that we need to change our consciousness. Can you see her? She looks like an angel. but she's not. Oh, sorry, I forgot. She's a goddess.
Goddess. All women are goddesses. All women are.
Yeah, especially
Sure.
these days when you can identify yourself and you think you can't.
Some men are goddesses too. It's crazy. Some men
Yeah,
are
they say so.
That's terrible. That's what I'm going to talk about.
That's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. I meant the femininity.
It's too much ayahuasca. Too much
Mama
ayahuasca.
Gaia is coming. I like it.
That's you
And anybody else has questions? No? Okay. Man, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. You'll probably be asked to speak again. And if you have friends, tell them they will speak as well.
Tons. We have a great network of amazing people. So yeah, sure.
Exactly. Let's go in detail into how we're gonna solve these little things of how to raise children, how to make plumbing, how to get rid of the garbage, you know, all these little small things.
Little things. Good.
Yes.
Good, brother.
Upcycling. Thank you, man. Thank you.
It was an honor. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening together, and see you in the high paradise here in Alto Paraiso one day.
Oh, yeah. I'm probably coming, you know. I'll just come over.
All right. Be welcome. Be welcome. All right.
You too, man. Thank you. Dan.
Ciao, folks.
Ciao, ciao.